just shows the power of the vote.
Do you recall this moment? The defeat of Donald Trump 4 years ago. To achieve this, it took more than 81 million votes. Nearly every American opposed to Trump rallied around one candidate. Nearly 97% of non-Trump voters backed this man, Joseph R. Biden. And it was still close. Had a sprinkling of votes gone a different way in just a few states, this would not have happened. In other words, Joe Biden's win required a broad coalition that just barely pulled it off. Now this coalition risks cracking. So Biden has big challenges, possibly insurmountable ones. Despite that, Democrats seem poised to stick with him as their candidate. In a moment, we'll talk about why that is. But first, here's what Biden is up against. Let's start with young voters. Biden's approval rating with them has cratered. From a high of 67% early on to just 30%. To paraphrase Ernest Hemingway, the decline happened slowly, then suddenly. A steady drop, accelerated during the war in Gaza. He's also lost support from swing voters. The drop there occurred mainly in the summer of 2021, the summer of inflation, of high gas prices, of the deadly debacle in Afghanistan. It's similar with Black and Latino voters. And across the board, people cite concerns about Biden's age.
I really don't like our current options. I feel like we need to get younger. I don't know, we've had the same system for so long. I think we need change.
Now Americans are bracing for a rematch. Biden against Trump. Again. And the polls show a tight race. In fact, lately, Trump is ahead in most surveys. The former president, once believed politically dead and facing dozens of criminal charges, is now enjoying the best polls of his life. Better than 2020. Even better than 2016 when he won. And that's not all. It gets worse for Biden. His team fears third-party candidates cutting into his base, bleeding more votes. On the left, there's Cornel West.
If all we can do is come up with a Trump leading us toward a second civil war and Biden leading us toward a third world war, we in a world of trouble.
That's in addition to the Green Party, which Democrats still blame for costing them past elections.
Few men are willing to brave it.
And Robert Kennedy Jr., running as an independent. He pulls support from both parties, so it's hard to predict the Kennedy effect. And finally, there's no labels. Democratic Senator Joe Manchin and some Republicans are toying with running on a centrist ticket.
I will not be running for re-election to the United States Senate. But what I will be doing is traveling the country and speaking out to see if there is an interest in creating a movement to mobilize the middle.
This has Biden's team terrified. Given all these challenges, could someone replace Biden in a primary? Dean Phillips is trying. He's a third-term congressman from Minnesota.
What's desperate is propagating the campaign of a man who's going to lose to the most dangerous man in the world. And I don't understand how Democrats are circling the wagons behind an unelectable ticket.
But Phillips's challenge appears to be collapsing. He is being blown out of the water by Biden. Biden won the New Hampshire primary by dozens of points, and he wasn't even on the ballot. People just wrote in his name. And yet another landslide's expected in South Carolina. So maybe it's too soon to count the president out. Here's what he has going for him. The economy is improving. He's had a prolific legislative agenda, signing major bills on clean energy, infrastructure, gun safety, lower drug prices. Another positive sign for Biden is that Democrats have consistently overperformed expectations in elections since the Supreme Court overturned the constitutional right to an abortion. And remember, Biden is still facing an unpopular opponent, Trump, who will be in and out of court this year on scores of criminal charges, including over this, his role in the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. So, should Democrats be happy that Biden seems to be surviving this primary challenge, or not? To answer that question, let's look at history. In the modern era, 4 sitting presidents have struggled against the primary challenge. And it's never ended well for anyone in the party. Lyndon Johnson faced a liberal challenge in 1968, Gerald Ford a conservative challenge from Ronald Reagan in 1976, as did George Bush Sr. in 1992, and Jimmy Carter was famously primaried in 1980 by Ted Kennedy.
The work goes on, the cause endures, the hope still lives, and the dream shall never die.
And here's what happened next. Every time the incumbent party lost the general election, every time the primary challenge failed and only hurt the incumbent, the president wound up quitting or limping on, damaged, defeated in the general election. So barring a surprise, there's only one man standing between Donald Trump and that White House. Like it or not, and some Democrats may not, his name is Joe Biden.